Hey guys, I'm RavingSaint, and this is World of Warships. This is a battleship replay that I want to show you guys. And the reason I'm going to show it to you is I want it to demonstrate to you guys the importance of being bow on. Now what does the bow on mean? Bow on means pointing the front of your ship, the bow, at the enemy, or pointing it in the direction that you know or that you believe you're going to be taking the most incoming damage from. It seems like a really simple tip, and I will admit, I tell people to stay bow on all the time, and then I get too tunnel vision in my periscope. I keep wanting to get all my guns to bear, especially when I'm in a battleship because of the slow reload time. And, you know, I'm sitting there going, yeah, I'm bow on, with all of my gun turrets pointed at the enemy. I'm not bow on when I do that. That's just me lying to myself. It's really easy to fall into that temptation of wanting to get all your guns at the enemy and fire. And in doing so, expose yourself.
Action stations.
So, when you're bow on, you're presenting the most narrow target possible to the enemy. If you're not completely bow on, if you show a little bit of an angle, you're making yourself a little bit bigger, but you're also making your armor effectively thicker, which is alright. It's okay to show a little angle. It's okay to show, you know, the bow as narrow as possible. It's really situational, and that's something you need to learn what you're most comfortable with. The one exception to the rule is trying to go bow on to a Yamato battleship. At that point, you're just hoping to present yourself as small as possible of a target. A Yamato's battleship shells are just going to go right through your bow no matter how much you angle. But it's still important to stay bow on because you're a smaller target. Alright? So, but that's only against a Yamato. Most of the time, unless you're a destroyer, again, if you're a destroyer, you're trying to present as small of a target as possible if you bow on, but really you should be avoiding. Cruisers and battleship players especially, stay bow on. Only show the broadside of your ship and get all your guns to bear if you're looking to bring the killing blow onto an enemy or if you're in a last desperate situation. Unless you can avoid it, you do not show the full broadside of your ship. Just stay bow on. I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but well, you're gonna see what happens when I don't remain bow on, when I get too greedy and show all my guns, and you're gonna see what happens when I, you know, finally get my head into gear and point my bow at the enemy. I'm gonna tell you guys, it's not gonna be a long video, but I think it'll illustrate in just a short period of time all the difference it makes. So here I am getting a little too excited, point all my guns, fire at the Fuso. Wait for the shells to land, everyone yells. I have a little bit moment of a hesitation, my shell shatters. That's unfortunate. Now look, I'm detected, the enemy knows where I'm at, and I'm showing as big a possible ship as possible. Shots out, and look what happens. That's like 8k damage right there that wasn't necessary. So, I'm going to wise up a little bit. I'm noticing that my allies are joining me, so I'm going to point my bow. Now, we're going to pause the battleship commentary right here. Let's talk a little bit about destroyers. Destroyers, your life depends on staying mobile. Don't sit too long in the water unless you absolutely have to. It's okay if you get surprised, but, you know, the moment that destroyer got spotted, he should have gunned his engines and started running. He sat way too long, and you're gonna see this. He's gonna try to hide into smoke, but he doesn't really move. He just sits there. And that's really unfortunate because I saw where he was before he disappeared. And even though I can't see him anymore, I took the shot, I took a gamble. He could have moved. but he didn't.
We sank an enemy destroyer.
He didn't.
Off to a cracking start.
Destroyers, move. Even if you're only moving ever so slightly. Go in reverse if you have to. But even though you've occluded yourself into smoke, if somebody was watching you, there's still a danger, especially if you don't move and you sit still just before you disappear. It's a calculated risk, but why take that chance? Alright, so here I am, finally pointing my bow at those 3+ ships. I know there's more in there, but as far as I'm concerned, though that Duca, the Fuso, the Mutsu, and whatever else might be in there, that's the direction that I know I'm going to take the most fire and damage from. That Arizona, yeah, I am showing a bigger target to him than I'm showing to everybody else, but he's just one ship, and my bow is pointed in the direction that I know I'm going to take the most fire. I'm not wanting to gun ahead. I don't want to go too far ahead of my allies, because at this point, I'm kind of like a floating discount island. And it's okay for me to tank damage, but let's not go Rambo, let's not get carried away. I'm still only showing a small, narrow bow to my enemy. I'm showing as much angled armor as I can while we punish this Arizona, which got himself out of position, whether on purpose or just by accident. He's out of position, he's getting focus fired. So it's okay for me, but it's terrible for him. Now, watch this. I'm not even maneuvering. All I've done is just kept my bow pointed at the enemy. Get out of there, Farragut. Run for your life. Okay. I haven't even moved my rudder. It would be an insult to call that a torpedo beat. Yep. More gunfire. All I did was just point my bow at the enemy, point my bow where I know the destroyer was. I didn't rush in. I waited. I'm barely even moving. And that's another benefit of pointing your bow at the enemy, especially when you know that there's a destroyer in the area. It makes you, again, I've said it 1,000 times, as small and as narrow of a target as possible. And especially if you keep your distance, torpedoes spread most of the time, unless they've been aircraft dropped. Most of the time, though, especially when launched from destroyers, torpedoes spread out. So if you keep your bow pointed at the enemy,
we destroyed an enemy battleship.
Keep your bow pointed at the enemy. You're gonna get sick of me sick of me saying that. Even if you point your bow at the enemy, it's making you as narrow a target as possible to shells and torpedoes. Now, things are kind of getting spread out, but you know we're still punishing the enemy. And finally, my luck's gonna run out and I'm gonna eat one torpedo. But that's okay. I've still pointed my bow at the enemy. I'm still happily tanking damage, and I'm still happily avoiding torpedoes without even moving my rudder. Crazy, I know. I don't even want to call it torpedo beating, because that really wasn't torpedo beating. It was just more like torpedoes sitting, you know? Anyway, so 2 battleships have gotten themselves out of position. That was a lucky miss, sort of, on my part. But I also know I'm getting damaged. I'm getting really punished right now because I'm out of position. So I decide it's time to do as much damage as possible before I go out, because I know I'm gonna sink. And you know, that's kind of a skill you can learn as a battleship player, knowing that, you know, you're gonna go down, so try to take one person with you. For example, a broadside cruiser. So I saw that Duca, I'm like, well, I'm about to sink, I'm taking one guy with me, and he's showing me a nice broadside. So, get my guns loaded, fire, I sink.
We destroyed
But so does he.
cruiser.
So, I hope that illustrates to you guys the importance, not just for battleships, but, you know, especially for battleships when it's your job to tank for everybody else. Because you have a damage repair ability. Most cruisers, until they get to tier 9 or 10, They don't have that. Destroyers don't have that. Only battleships have that. And that is such an important asset for your team to be able to tank all that damage. Because especially if you use that ability all 3 to 4 times, that's almost like an extra battleship that the enemy has to try and sink and burn through. And the more that they focus on you without sinking you, the more time it gives your allies to hit back at them and do damage to them. And it's a battle of attrition that you want to win and force your enemies to lose. So, and all of that just by doing a stupid little tactic as keeping the front of your ship pointed at the enemy. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helps. And remember, keep calm and bow on. You all have a good night. Take care.